Alright, let's talk about something that's been on my mind lately. Steven Spielberg and his so-called most underrated film. Now, when you hear Spielberg, you probably think Jaws, E.T., or Schindler's List, right? But what if I told you there's this one movie from the 80s that even Spielberg himself thinks deserves another look? Yeah, it's called Always, and honestly, it's a film that's been largely forgotten. But here's the thing. What makes this really interesting is that Spielberg doesn't just brush it off as a misstep. He genuinely loves it. And that got me thinking, why does a director of his caliber, someone who's basically defined modern cinema, feel so strongly about a movie that critics have pretty much written off? Personally, I think it's because Always is Spielberg at his most vulnerable. It's not a blockbuster. It's not trying to change the world. It's just a heartfelt story about love, loss, and second chances. And maybe that's why it's been overlooked. It doesn't fit the mold of what we expect from him. Now, let's set the scene. Always is a remake of the 1943 film A Guy Named Joe, and Spielberg brought in heavy hitters like Richard Dreyfuss, Holly Hunter, and John Goodman. But here's where it gets fascinating. The film came out in 1989, right at the end of a decade where Spielberg had completely dominated Hollywood. I mean, think about it. Raiders of the Lost Ark, E.T., The Color Purple, these are all 80s films. So, Always hits theaters, and Roger Ebert calls it Spielberg's weakest since 1941. Ouch! But if you take a step back and think about it, maybe Ebert missed the point. What many people don't realize is that Always isn't trying to be a masterpiece. It's a passion project. Spielberg remade a film he adored, when he used to show to girlfriends when he was younger. That's personal. That's raw. And in an industry where everything feels calculated, there's something refreshing about a director saying, "Hey, I just love this story." Now, let's dive into the plot because it's actually pretty wild. Dreyfuss plays Pete, a firefighter pilot who dies in a forest fire but gets sent back to Earth as a guardian angel. Sounds like classic Spielberg fantasy, right? But here's the twist. Pete has to watch his girlfriend, Dorinder, fall for someone else. And the guy she falls for? The pilot Pete's supposed to mentor. Talk about awkward. What this really suggests is that Spielberg was exploring themes of letting go and moving on, which is a far cry from the adventure-driven narratives he's known for. One thing that immediately stands out is Audrey Hepburn's role as the spirit guide Hap. This was her final film, and there's something poetic about her character guiding Pete through the afterlife. It's almost like Spielberg was giving her one last gift, a chance to shine in a story he deeply cared about. But here's where I have to be honest, Always isn't perfect. The script feels a bit clunky at times, and the pacing can drag. In my opinion, it's not Spielberg's best work, but that's not the point. What makes Always worth revisiting is its sincerity. It's a film that wears its heart on its sleeve, and in a world where cynicism often feels like the default, that's rare. From my perspective, the fact that Spielberg still champions this movie decades later says a lot about him as an artist. He's not just chasing Oscars or box office records. He's making films that mean something to him, even if they don't resonate with everyone else. So, is Always worth another shot? Personally, I think it is, but with a caveat. Don't go in expecting Jurassic Park or Saving Private Ryan. Go in knowing you're watching Spielberg at his most human. This raises a deeper question, though. Why do we write off films that don't fit neatly into a director's catalogue? Always might not be a masterpiece, but it's a window into Spielberg's soul. And in an era where everything feels curated and calculated, that kind of authenticity is worth celebrating. So, next time you're scrolling through streaming services, give Always a chance. You might just find yourself appreciating Spielberg in a whole new light. And who knows? Maybe you'll walk away loving it as much as he does.